Hey guys, this is Kayla with Becky's Graphic Design in Nashville, Tennessee. And today I'm going to explain to you the difference between hardcover and paperback covers, specifically when uploading them to IngramSpark for publishing. I'm also going to talk about the importance of making sure that you have enough extra illustration at the edges of your covers when you're doing a children's book, because when you get to the hardcover, you're going to need much more than you actually think you do. So let me show you the main difference between a paperback and a hardcover version of a book. Here I have two children's books that we have created both a hardcover and a paperback version of. Now here is where it's very important to understand if you will be having a hardcover version of the book before you begin. Let's take this one for example. Here's the paperback version of this book. Now, when the illustrator began this project, she only knew of the paperback version. So the illustrator drew only the dimensions of this image. This is fine because the paper gets cut right at the edge. There is no need for any additional bleed beyond the normal 1/8 of an inch. However, if we look at the hardcover version of this book, we see that that illustration comes around the edge of the hardcover. And if you look here, look at this crease line. That crease line is how far that color goes underneath this paper. So the illustration has to extend this much further around the edge from the original illustration. I believe in this project, this was about, it was almost 3/4 of an inch bleed. So that means the artwork has to extend quite a bit farther from the edge than you intend it to. You can see on the back side we have the same thing. The artwork continues all the way around the edge and goes about this far in. You can see that crease line that is drawn along here. That's how far in we have to go. I'll show you the same thing with this other book. With the Mailboat dog, we had the same problem. The illustrator only went this far, and when we went to the hardcover version, we actually had to have her come in and draw more artwork that would extend all the way around the edge. This book's fun. We had a duplex cover made for it with this illustration on the inside. But you can see this crease line. That's how much further the illustration needs to go. So to start off, let's look at this IngramSpark template I have for a softcover children's book that we recently made. This is a fairly standard template. Here we have the front side of the book and the back side of the book. Where the template comes in is you go to IngramSpark and you tell them the number of pages that your book has. When you do this, you will be generated a template that tells you how wide the spine will be, and it will tell you where to place this file on this document for upload. If we look, we can see all of these blue guides and margins. On the edges, if I hide the guides, you can see this black line. This black line indicates the bleed. Anything from here on over to the edge will be cut off. This is because the printer cannot print directly to the very edges of the paper, so they print just a little beyond where it needs to go and then they cut it off. Typically, a bleed like this is 1/8 of an inch, and if I draw a little rectangle to check, it should be, yep, it says 1/8 of an inch there. If I unhide my margins, we can see this trim line here, and these appear on all of the corners of the file. This is where the cover will be trimmed. This is easy enough because when we have our illustrator create the illustrations for this document, all she needs to worry about is coming to the edges, just a little bit beyond. We run into a different problem when we get to the hardcover book. Because the hardcover requires so much extra material to fold onto the inside, we oftentimes end up with a problem where we don't have enough illustration to actually make it over the edge of the page and curve into the inside of the book. Let me show you an example. Here is the background artwork for the Mailboat dog. Unfortunately, we started with the softcover book files. However, when the author decided that she wanted to do a hardcover book, suddenly we did not have enough illustration. The illustration stops here at the edge. We can see the sky and the horizon line. However, the hardcover files stretch 3/4 of an inch out further than the typical softcover book and almost an entire inch on this side. Because of this, if I stretched this image file all the way to the edges of the red where it needs to go, all of a sudden there's no more sky left in my document. This portion would be pulled all the way up to here. At the top of my book would be showing trees instead of sky. Fortunately, we were able to work with this illustrator and she could come back and draw more illustration for us all the way out to the edges. Sometimes this can be more difficult, say you have characters or other more complicated objects on the edge. So we always recommend that if you're going to do a hardcover, start with the artwork for this first and realize that the edges need to be negative space. Nothing important needs to go near the edges at all on a children's book illustration for the cover. Now let me show you the IngramSpark files for the hardcover. Similar to the softcover, but here we can see the hardcover template files for IngramSpark. If we go down to this same corner and hide the guides, we can see that this is the trim line and this is the outer edge. There is this much of the book that is going to wrap underneath. Now that is over 1/2 inch. This is fairly significant when you're working with an illustrator. There are some ways to fake this. Let me show you. In this children's book, we ran into the same issue. Fortunately for the back cover, I had an image to use that had plenty of negative space, so I was simply able to pull this image all the way to the edges of these guides. Here we can see these are the edges. This is going to be the fold line. This is where it will fold over the edge of the book and go underneath the interior flap. On the front side, I was also lucky to have an image that I could pull slightly more to the edges, and then I applied a feather. It is important to note that this feather extends at least beyond this fold line. You're not able to tell for the most part that I did this in the physical copy of the book because this feather goes just beyond that interior fold flap. Sometimes you're able to get away with using the same artwork for the soft cover without having to create more artwork, but you do want to make sure that you have your artwork extending as far as you can to prevent a hard cut line over that fold. You want a nice smooth transition from the front of the cover into the inside flap. Alright guys, I hope this helps. I will see you in the next video, and go ahead and like and subscribe. Leave a comment if you have questions. Alright, I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.